Hello everyone and welcome to my The Bold Fans channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Ridge Forrester has spent decades navigating the private storms that frequently hit his family and company. He has witnessed marriages end, alliances move, and secrets emerge at the worst conceivable times. Nothing in his extensive expertise prepares him for the moment. He comes into the executive corridor at Forrester Creations and discovers his daughter and the company's chief counsel engaged in a fight that is clearly not about fabric orders or board votes. The volume is low, yet the body language is apparent. Steffy Forrester Finnegan and Carter Walton are debating with the fervor of people who are involved in something far more hazardous than a professional disagreement. Ridge pauses at the doorway long enough to hear bits that bring the larger picture into focus. By the time the two realize they are no longer alone, the damage has been done. The secret they have been keeping is just one raised voice away from being revealed. The conflict has been developing for several days. Since Finn began asking tougher questions, and the corporate crisis around the leaked Youthline proposal compelled Steffy and Carter to be in close proximity, the pressure on their shared silence has grown. Carter has become more insistent that they maintain strict discipline. Steffy, exhausted by the effort of managing Finn's residual skepticism and her own guilt, has begun to push back. She wants a definite end point, a time when the secret can be retired rather than constantly managed. Carter only sees risk. Their whispered strategy sessions have gotten shorter and more brittle. On this particular afternoon, the tension escalates into outright combat. Ridge has heard enough to realize the stakes. References to that night, Finn's rising suspicion, Daphne's ongoing ignorance, and the difficulties of keeping the truth buried forever are clinically clear. He does not interrupt immediately. He stands in the doorway's partial shade, allowing the dispute to continue long enough to confirm his suspicions. When he eventually moves forward, the impact is immediate. Steffy's face is drained of color. Carter's posture stiffens into the formal neutrality he employs during legal conversations. Neither offers a casual explanation. Both agree that Ridge's already absorbed bits are sufficient. The conversation that follows takes place in Eric's office, with the door closed. Ridge doesn't raise his voice. He rarely has to. He explains what he overheard in brief, precise phrases and then waits. Steffy attempts first, providing a carefully edited account of events that acknowledges emotional support and shared drinks but falls short of describing physical reality. Ridge cut her off with a single glance. He nurtured this daughter. He understands the distinction between imperfect truth and outright evasion. Carter fared no better. His attempt to characterize the night as a shared failure in judgment under intense circumstances simply confirms what Ridge already knows. The affair, or the single night that serves as one, is genuine. The cover-up is deliberate. Ridge is now also concerned about the harm to both marriages and the company's stability. The context in which the finding happens adds to its corrosive effect. Forrester Creations is still dealing with the ramifications from Dylan's disclosure of the covert Youthline plan. Trust within the building is already precarious. Will and R.J. They continue at odds. Finn continues to observe Steffy with the quiet focus of a man who knows something is amiss but hasn't gathered all the facts. Daphne is striving to mend her marriage to Carter while still dealing with her own fertility issues. Ridge now brings into that volatile situation the revelation that two of the company's key people have been carrying out a massive private deceit. The professional and personal repercussions begin to overlap almost immediately. Ridge's initial decision is containment. He makes it obvious that the material will not leave the room until he has decided how it should be handled. He isn't interested in rapid public reckoning or dramatic confrontations. He is concerned with minimizing collateral damage to the children, the firm, and the overall family structure. At the same time, he refuses to be a permanent co-conspirator. Steffy and Carter are informed in plain words that the period of free management of the secret has ended. Ridge will select the timing and method of disclosure. Their preferences are secondary. Steffy's answer combines defiance and desperation. She claims that the night was a one-time failure under unusual conditions, that she and Carter have already promised that it will never happen again, and that exposing the truth will harm more lives than it will save. She refers to Kelly and Hayes, Daphne's fragile emotional state, and Finn's recent attempts to restore the marriage. Ridge listens with no outward reaction. He has heard variations of this argument over several generations of Forrester crises. The pattern is well known. When the secret is threatened with disclosure, the people who invented it become its most zealous supporters. He does not see the defense as decisive. Carter's perspective is more pragmatic, and so more informative. He focuses on legal and operational risks. A public scandal involving the CEO's daughter and the general counsel would draw external scrutiny, something the corporation cannot afford while still recuperating from the Youthline leak. He proposes a regulated, private resolution, perhaps a discreet acknowledgement to the impacted spouses under settings that limit future harm. Ridge understands the lawyer's desire to discuss the scope of disclosure. He also knows that Carter's main concern remains the preservation of his own marriage and professional status. Ridge does not become more lenient as a result of the argument. It only clarifies the self-interest that still exists beneath the rhetoric of damage control. The immediate aftermath inside the building is a study in imposed normalcy. Steffy and Carter return to their respective jobs, aware that Ridge is now an active variable in their equation. Each interaction between them has a fresh charge. Meetings that used to carry simply the leftover stress of their shared secret now bear the added weight of Ridge's surveillance. Finn, still working with incomplete information, notices a change in the atmosphere but does not yet know what caused it. He notices that Steffy is more tightly controlled, Carter avoids extended eye contact, and Ridge has started appearing in unexpected places on the executive floor. Data points accumulate. Finn's medical expertise continues to undermine any remaining willingness to accept inadequate explanations. Ridge does not rush through the next steps. He spends the next few days observing. He observes how Steffy supervises the children. He notes Carter's frequent communication with Daphne. He examines the professional calendar for pressure points that may necessitate premature disclosure. Patience is strategic. Ridge realizes that secrets of this scale rarely survive indefinite containment once a third party has access to the critical information. He is waiting for the moment when the cost of remaining silent outweighs the cost of controlled disclosure. That moment happens sooner than Steffy and Carter think. The catalyst is an apparent small scheduling conflict. Finn, who is growing resistant to ambiguity, pursues Steffy for a detailed description of the morning she returned from Monaco. The talk takes place at the Cliff House, while the children are with Taylor. Steffy's replies, honed over weeks of rehearsal, begin to unravel under repeated inquiry. Finn planned too thoroughly. He has rebuilt timings, cross-referenced office access logs made available to senior personnel, and documented every discrepancy in her previous assertions. When Steffy makes one more deflection, Finn just says that he knows enough to be convinced she is still hiding the crucial piece. The confrontation is quiet, thorough, and conclusive. Steffy's call to Carter that evening is brief and somber. The secret is no longer completely theirs to keep. Finn has reached the point of complete discovery. Ridge already has the entire picture. The only question left is the order and manner of the remaining disclosures. Carter responds with controlled panic. He begins calculating the sequence of discussions that must now take place, with Daphne, Ridge, and the inevitable larger circle, while still attempting to preserve some vestige of the life he has been rebuilding. The professional dilemma surrounding the fashion plan has suddenly become secondary. The personal one has surpassed it. Ridge receives an update from Steffy the following morning. He does not show astonishment. He had been expecting the acceleration. His directions are straightforward and limited. Steffy will tell Finn everything before the day is out. Carter will inform Daphne within the same time frame. Ridge will be ready for the inevitable follow-up conversations, with Taylor, Brooke if necessary, and senior staff if the professional repercussions warrants it. The timeline is no longer negotiable. The period of private management is over. When the disclosure eventually occurs, it is not a single dramatic scene, but rather a sequence of interlocking confrontations that take place over the course of one long day. Finn learns the complete truth at the Cliff home in the early afternoon. The details land with the force of confirmation rather than surprise. He has already built the most of the edifice. What remains is the emotional reckoning, the realization that the woman who demanded perfect honesty about Sheila had committed a more serious type of secrecy, and that the reconciliation he thought they were forging together was based on a shaky basis. His response isn't explosive. It is such a thorough disengagement that Steffy realizes the marriage has entered territory where return is no longer guaranteed. Daphne's confrontation with Carter happens later that day. The discourse is shorter but, in some ways, more damaging. Daphne spent weeks rebuilding trust following her own leave and return. Learning that the man she returned to had previously crossed a line with Steffy during their separation alters the emotional timeline of their reconciliation. Fertility issues, which previously felt like a shared burden, now sit alongside an unspoken betrayal. Carter's explanations, context, regret, the agreement to bury the night, are insufficient. Daphne leaves the house before the conversation can be resolved. Ridge monitors both disclosures from a safe distance. He does not intervene in weddings. He does step in when professional implications become apparent. By the evening, the senior staff is aware that Steffy and Carter are experiencing a severe personal problem. Ridge describes the issue in terms of temporary operational adjustment rather than scandal. Carter's responsibilities are surreptitiously transferred. Steffy's public schedule has been lightened. The corporation continues to operate while the private wreckage is being assessed. The news is gradually absorbed by the rest of the family. Taylor's reaction is a complex combination of mother protectiveness and objective assessment of the damage. Brooke identifies a pattern of secrets that eventually require payment. Will and RJ, who are also dealing with their own quarrel over the fashion plan revelation, see the current issue as more proof that the company's internal culture remains unstable. Electra observes the grown-ups around her manage another round of hidden realities and arrives at her own silent conclusions about the cost of that management. What remains after the initial wave of exposure is a lengthy process of consequences. Finn and Steffy's marriage starts a period of formal separation whose duration and outcome are unknown. Carter and Daphne's relationship is on hold while Daphne decides whether any type of repair is still feasible. Ridge controls the institutional center, ensuring that Forrester Creations does not become collateral damage in the personal collapse. The secret that began with a single night of mutual weakness and a common decision to remain silent has now reached its conclusion. It is no longer a secret. The only remaining question is how many of the lives it touched can be rebuilt with the truth that has now replaced it. Forced exposure has always served as both an ending and a beginning in the bold and the beautiful's architecture. Ridge discovers the quarrel between Steffy and Carter, which brings the private management chapter to a stop. It begins the longer chapter of public and private reckoning. The affair is no longer a control variable. It is an established truth with cascading consequences that will continue to shape the company, the family, and the two marriages at its heart for the foreseeable future. The brawl that Ridge intervened did not cause the problem. It just eliminated the final barrier that prevented the problem from being fully obvious. Ridge Forrester strolled through the quiet corridors of Forrester Creations with the steady purpose of a man who has built an empire but still preferred to inspect the details himself. The late afternoon light filtered through the large windows, illuminating the showroom's polished surfaces and transforming the fabric samples into beautiful ribbons of color. He'd come seeking for Carter. He only needed a brief discussion regarding the legal terminology used on the youth line. The office door was partially open. Voices were carried out in a low, hurried tone that belonged behind closed doors. He paused. Steffy's voice reached him first, tight with an unprofessional quarrel. You can't keep pretending it didn't happen. Every time I look at Finn, I feel like the floor is ready to collapse beneath me. We have to decide what we're doing before someone else decides for us. Carter's response was softer, but the strain was clear. I understand. Daphne is beginning to notice. She asks questions I can't answer without lying, and I'm out of options for redirection. We said one night. We said it remained buried. But it won't remain buried, Steffy. Ridge rested his hand on the doorframe. He didn't push it open. He remained there, listening as the words landed like successive punches. Moonlight. Buried. Daphne. Finn. The parts organized themselves with brutal clarity. His daughter and a close friend. The man who had stood by him through every corporate crisis. The woman who has already been through more than most people could imagine. He stepped into the threshold. Both of them turned. Steffy's face quickly lost its color and seemed almost gray. Carter straightened out as if someone had yanked a cord at the base of his spine. For a long time no one spoke. The only sounds were the distant hum of the air system and a faint click from a printer down the corridor. Ridge shut the door behind him with meticulous care. "I think," he began, his voice level rising as if the actual threat had already arrived, "you both need to explain what I just heard." Steffy's lips opened and closed. She looked at Carter and then back at her father. "Dad, don't." Ridge raised one hand. "I stepped in on the middle of a conversation that had already revealed more than I wanted to know. I now want the rest. Since the beginning. There is no editing. There is no protecting anyone's feelings." Carter was the first to find words. It happened the night Steffy returned from Monaco. She was devastated. Finn had concealed Sheila's presence during the trip. She felt as if everything she trusted had crumbled. I was dealing with my own collapse. Daphne's diagnosis, the future we believed we were creating. We were both broken in the same hour. Talk. We drank. One thing led to another. It was not intended. This has not happened again. But the weight of it has not subsided. Ridge gazed at his daughter. The hush that followed was more intense than any shouted voice could have been. Steffy's eyes were filled with unshed tears, yet she did not look away. "He's telling the truth," she explained. "I was angry, heartbroken, and inebriated, so I made the worst possible decision. I've been carrying it every day since. Finn returned ready to battle for us. He placed the rings on the table and begged me to trust him again. And I sat there with this secret in my mouth, too cowardly to spill it." Ridge stepped to the window and peered out at the city, but saw nothing. The empire he had spent his life protecting now felt unstable in ways unrelated to stock prices or competing labels. His daughter had crossed a line that she had previously denounced without hesitation. His friend, his brother in all but blood, had crossed the line with her. "You both decided the truth was optional," he replied last. "You agreed Finn and Daphne could live in a falsehood as long as you both did the damage. That isn't protection. That is arrogance." Steffy's voice broke. "I understand. I have played it 1,000 times. I'm waiting for the moment when the cost is too high to ignore. I believe that moment just walked in the door." Carter went forward, hands open at his sides. "Ridge, I share equal accountability with her. More perhaps. I should have walked away the moment I discovered she was vulnerable. I did not. I let the moment consume both of us. I've been fighting to keep my marriage together as something sits underneath it like a bomb. Daphne deserved better. Finn deserves better. You deserve better than to find out this way." Ridge looked away from the window. The expression on his face was not the explosive wrath Steffy had anticipated. It was cooler, more final. "I have watched this family survive affairs, lies, near-deaths, and every variety of betrayal the city can invent," he stated. "What I've never accepted is the notion that the individuals I trust the most get to rewrite the rules whenever it suits them. You two did just that. You determined that the truth could wait until it was convenient. That is over now," Steffy said, taking a step toward him. "Dad, please. Let's be the ones to tell them. Finn and Daphne. Let us do it ourselves before it gets public and ugly." "You had that opportunity," Ridge responded. "You've had days, weeks. You chose silence." Carter's jaw tightened. Silence is no longer an option. If this turns out the wrong way, it will end 2 marriages at once. Daphne is already vulnerable. Finn is still striving to prove that he can keep Sheila out of your daughter's life. Dropping this on them without any control will compel everyone to cope with reality rather than your ideal interpretation, Ridge concluded. I'm not interested in resolving the conflict so that the two of you can continue to claim moral authority. You lost it the night you decided your suffering was more important than their right to know the truth. The room felt smaller. Steffi put her arms over herself, as if the air had become colder. Carter looked at the floor, then Ridge, and finally at Steffi. The shared secret that had held them together in private now loomed between them like a third presence, exposed and unpleasant. Ridge approached the door, then halted with his hand on the handle. I'm going home. I'm going to sit with Brooke tonight and assess how much of this she should know. I expect both of you to have a plan in place for notifying the folks you betrayed before morning. If not, I will make the decision for you. Is this clear? Neither of them responded immediately. Finally, Steffi nodded, her gesture tiny and defeated. Carter's voice sounded harsh. Clear. Ridge went without saying anything more. The door shut with a gentle, decisive click. The silence that followed was not the same as that which had filled the room prior to his arrival. It was the stillness of two individuals who had just witnessed the last barrier between their secret and the outside world crumble. Steffi sank into the chair behind Carter's desk, as if her legs could no longer support her. He is going to inform Brooke. She'll never look at me the same way. Carter stood still. Brooke has endured far worse revelations about the people she loves. That doesn't make things easier. It only implies she understands how severe the damage can be.